Good afternoon, everyone. Depending on where you are in Africa, most of part of Africa, it's good afternoon. But I know those who are following us from Europe or other parts of the world, they are probably just waking up. Welcome to the fourth webinar, and I'm your host, Innocent Magambi, and my co-host, Florissa. Today, we are talking about refugee arts, and we are joined by amazing, talented people. We have Dr. Q Malewezi. Dr. Q Malewezi is a published poet. He has been featured in so many international media, including CNN, BBC, among others. He is a promoter and event organizer. Thank you so much, Bwana Q Malewezi, for accepting our invitation, for joining us. We will be joined shortly by Sir Lucius Banda, who is one of the icon and presidential advisor on youth and arts in Malawi. So he'll be joining us. He told us that he was traveling. He's on duty, so whenever he's ready, he will join us. And we have Toussaint Farini. Toussaint Farini is a co-founder and director of Salam Africa, and he's also a Mandela Washington Fellow, representing so many youth, including those in Dzaleka. Toussaint is a Congolese by nationality and a resident of Dzaleka. He is a refugee. We also have Marlene Chimombo. Marlene is a singer, songwriter. She's a psychologist. She's also a lecturer and a youth pastor. So we are honored to have you, Marlene. Gerard, as our tradition, we normally start with a short video that highlights the topic of today. So Gerard, could you please play us the short video, and Florissa will take over from there.
When you get up in the morning and get busy with the mundane tasks that make up your day-to-day, what are the practices that you look forward to, the things that bring you joy, a sense of self-expression, or peace of mind and stress relief? In Dzaleka refugee camp, Malawi, 86% of the population is under the age of 35. National policy states that refugees must reside in the refugee camp until they might be able to return to their country of origin or obtain formal resettlement to a third country. This also applies to refugees who were born in Malawi. Some of the ways in which people cope with the harsh living conditions and with the anxiety over an uncertain future are by engaging in sports or performing arts.
My name is Mairuka. I'm a dancer for Salam Africa.
My name is Toussaint Farini. Of course, we know that refugees, they don't have the freedom of movement and they are not allowed to work. But what we do as refugees is to work together and coming up with some ideas that can just help us so that we can be creating our own work.
Amahoro drumming group are keeping alive an ancient Burundian tradition in the diaspora. Most of the group members were born of Burundian parents but never lived in the country. This is one of the few ways they hold on to their national identity through a lifetime of displacement. For some of exceptional talent, performance has become a source of livelihood and provides exposure across Malawi. Despite drawing the audience's appreciation and in some cases winning awards, the lack of legal integration continues to be a barrier to taking part in events, both in Malawi and overseas.
Great. So I hope you all enjoyed that video, and I'm now going to ask Q to put his audio and video on, as I want to ask him the first questions of the session. So Q, we are friends, and I'm delighted that we are also doing this piece of work together. Thank you so much for caring for the refugee cause. I'm always a little bit envious of people that make a living from something to do with art, because I guess it looks very much more glamorous, you know, from the outside than the hard work that it entails, and probably also the difficulties that are unique to the arts as an income stream. And I know that you do something else as well, all to contribute towards your livelihood. But I want to know, at what point did you realize that actually the poetry that you were composing and the performing could become somewhat of a profession, a viable profession, I would say?
I'm still looking for that point. But I think generally because I've been in art since I was very young, it's also what I studied as well. And from when I was in university, I started working in music as a music producer, songwriter, composer, and arranger. So from a very young age, it's how I have earned my living. And I think I've gone through this journey of music. Well, before music, there was ballroom dancing, but we're not going to talk about that. So it's been dance, it's theater, music, poetry, or a combination of those things. So I think for me, the important thing has been, how do I maximize on the various revenue streams, even in an individual discipline? So when I look at poetry, for example, I earn money from doing corporate gigs, from other performances, from commissions. I get commissioned to write and also perform. And I also write short poems, I do custom poetry for people as well. So I've tried to maximize revenue streams in an individual discipline. So, and yeah, that's the example that I wanted to give, I think, in poetry. I think this was about a year ago when I decided that to take it a little bit more seriously from a business aspect and look at expanding those various revenue streams in poetry.
Yeah, and actually, that's basically two different skill sets. One is the entrepreneurial, you know, and then one is being able to write poems, and those things don't always go together, or, you know, or to do whatever it is that music engineers do, and, you know, all those things. So were you always sort of, did you have a business streak, or did you have to acquire one to complement your talent?
I had to learn. I think all I wanted to do when I was younger was be an amazing music producer, and didn't want anything to do with the business side of it. I thought, you know what, I will have people who will be able to take care of that for me. I did, but, you know, a lot of money went missing. I should have been more on it. I mean, I was young, I had a lot of zeal, I was very excited. And then I think I met one of my mentors is this guy called Joe Parham, who really drummed in the entrepreneurial aspect that I started to learn, to acquire different skills and started applying them in my craft. So yeah, I wasn't always entrepreneurial in my craft. It's something that I've had to acquire.
Yeah, actually, this is a point that I would like later on to come back to, because when the people with talent don't also have the ability or even access to marketing and monetizing their talent, then I guess there's definitely opportunities for people that have the entrepreneurial strength to still play a part in arts, you know, by using other people's talent, and hopefully in very supportive and ethical and fair ways. The next question I wanted to ask is that one other thing that you do is talent management, event organizing. And, you know, following what you do, I realized that occasionally, or I would say frequently, you do feature or promote people from underprivileged backgrounds. And actually, I also want to mention that you were instrumental in the fact that Menez La Plume, Tresor, who has now become very well known as organizer of Tumaini Festival, was able to get some initial airplay and participation on the poetry scene in Malawi. So I want to ask you, like, are you on purpose careful to look out for people that come from underprivileged situations and promoting them, or is it just perhaps because the context that we live in, you know, presents challenges to a lot of people?
Yeah, I think maybe a bit of both. I think when it comes to participation, these are the things that I always look at. I always look at gender representation. I look at regional representation. I look at global representation, if we're at that level. And I also look at representation from different social backgrounds, especially people who have who come from an underprivileged background. So I think I've worked with people from the refugee camp. I've worked with adolescents who are living with HIV. I've been involved in a lot of these projects where I have to bring in this inclusion and access to platforms. I think it's probably just the way I am. I think to add to that, I'm also a Rotarian, and one of the things, the ethos is to serve those who are in less fortunate circumstances than ourselves. So I think also because of that, I'm always on the lookout to see how I can involve or get involved with people who come from a less fortunate background than myself. So yeah, I think that contributes. So I think it's a mishmash of reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, you know, because for those of us who can be classed as being privileged, there can be a tendency sometimes to disengage and to almost be paralyzed by that privilege, because we realize that we've had access to certain things that other peoples do not have or haven't had, and we don't necessarily know how to deal with that, you know, the feeling that it carries. Or sometimes we get asked for favors a lot, and we need to put in boundaries which are healthy. But sometimes, again, there's a feeling of guilt or discomfort when we have to say no to several people. So I admire the capacity to remain engaged without denying, you know, perhaps the fortunate background that you come from and the opportunities that you have been given. And I feel like you do it in a very well-balanced way. And I imagine it takes a balance intentionally, you know. So I just wanted to say that and to applaud you for that. Good. Innocent, I think I'm going to pass you the mic if you're ready.
Innocent is having internet issues. He will be joining us shortly.
That's fine. I'll be the hostess with the mostest today. Maybe I'll ask Marlene to come in and also to comment on the reality of, sorry, Marlene, I didn't prepare you for this, but in a society such as the one that we live in Malawi, there are always people that have less than we have or haven't had access to very basic opportunities that we may take for granted. And you are a psychologist, I know you are a counselor, so you actually get to hear stories from people, pretty much you and them in a room. You can't really run away from it. Tell me about the way in which you maintain, let's say, your self-care and well-being, even when you're so aware of people suffering around you?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I think a question that as a counselor, as psychologists, we are faced with almost all the time, because to be able to do our work, we have to be aware, have to be aware of ourselves, have to be aware of the people we're trying to help. And for me, it's been, I'm still growing in that area, but it's something that I think I have had to be really deliberate about understanding my own limitations, and understanding my own capacities as well in helping others. And because, you know, I think you mentioned even earlier about the challenge sometimes of privilege. I'm going to combine this a little bit, because sometimes I think it's the same kind of fear. You want to help, but then you don't really know how. And I think a lot of the times it's also that burden of, I have so much to give, but how do I discipline myself in giving it? And how do I do it wisely? So I think for me as a psychologist, I have to be really honest with myself. I have to ask myself hard questions all the time. Questions like, okay, can I do this? Am I going to be able to help this person? Or is this something that's really difficult for me? Sometimes for me, I have to take leave. I have to ask like coworkers to say, okay, I don't think I can handle this case. What I usually do if I find a case that, especially to do with trauma, I'm specializing in trauma, so I meet a lot of people who are dealing with trauma, including people even at refugee camps. And sometimes there are certain cases they're so heavy for me, I have to take a break. So I talk to my people, and I talk to my, I always have supervisors with me or consultants, and I have to ask myself really hard questions. Can I do this? Even though I want to help, but boundaries are important and they're healthy. So it's actually good for others to be able to know yourself as well.
There's a phrase that has become popular recently. I don't know if you have heard it. It's simple, and it says, we can do hard things. Yes, but also what I've appreciated recently is the meaning of the word allyship, or being an ally to someone. And what I've realized, which has helped me, again, as a white person living in Malawi, I sometimes wonder, should I even be here and engage with issues when I am an outsider? But apart from playing a role of, I guess, special envoy for my friends and family who live in another country and, kind of get to hear what happens in this part of the world, what I've learned about allyship is it's normally necessary for the people of privilege to act out change that affects the excluded group, because the excluded group don't have the power, by virtue of being excluded. They cannot change it themselves. So I think it's a worthwhile, what you're doing, you're being honest and vulnerable and saying, I'm specializing in trauma, even if those are the hardest cases, even for yourself to deal with. But with the help of others, that's what I like of what you've said, that if we are in a team, we're going to support each other, and together we can achieve those hard things. But this thing of, maybe that's why the phrase says we can do hard things and not I can do hard things, how essential it is to do these things together instead of being overwhelmed by how big or difficult they are. I wanted to ask about your personal life, especially growing up. I know that you sing. I want to know, how did that come about? How did you realize that you could sing? And I presume that you sang in church a lot, but did you also sing when you were alone? Was it ever like a release or a personal something that you cultivated?
So singing, apparently I could sing before I could talk. That's what my parents say. So my family is a musical family. both my parents were in choirs in college, and even their parents were always musical. So I grew up in a family of singers and musicians. My brother is also a composer and a music producer. So I literally, for me, music is my life. I think you asked, is it something I would just do at home in my own space? Yes, a lot. Actually, that was my escape for a lot of things growing up. But I think not just escape, it was also joy for me. It still is. I don't think I can do a day without it. Sometimes I do it without realizing, and people are always like, why are you always humming? But for me, it's a part of myself, actually, the person that I am. It's so much a part of me that if I deny it, I deny a part of myself. So yes, I sang in church. I also sang with choirs growing up. The first time I entered a studio, I was 11, I think, with my brother and a group. That was a scary experience, but I learned a lot. And the first time I sang with someone, I thought I was just like, what? Was the late George Nkandawire. I was in Blantyre with my brother. I was 13. And there he was in a studio, and he was like, hey, you have a nice voice. Can you do backups for my album? I was like, what? And that was my first, professional experience. And I did backups for his Tantwe album. So from there, I realized I also love performing. So it's not just singing for me. It's all different types of performing arts. I've done some years doing dance as work as well with a dance company. Done theater. I also draw. So it's all types of arts that are not only a release for me, but expression of self.
Great. And actually, this question, I want to put it to you and I want to put it to Q. And Q, I hope you're still around. Yes, you are. So just to share, when I went to Dzaleka for the very first time in my life, it was 2004. And it was a late afternoon in June. So it was extremely cold, windy, and very depressing. And the thought that came to my mind was, if the next Picasso, amazing painter, sort of innovative, incredible sort of gift to the world, was born in Dzaleka, the world would never know it because we would miss out, because these kids don't have coloring pens or paints or paper or something like that. And I had that sense of a potential that's being, snuffed out like a candle. So yourself, Marlin, and Q, let's start with Q and then go back to Marlin. But what can the host, as in the Malawian community of artists, promoters, and just people of influence, what can you guys do you think, to make sure that talent isn't wasted in a refugee camp?
Oof, that's a big question. I think it's easy to get paralyzed by a place which has such immense need, not only from an arts point of view, but from a life point of view. And I think sometimes you start thinking, okay, what about, when you start thinking of the basics, like food, access to education, access to health, that whole hierarchy of needs. But let's pretend as if those needs are there. Maybe that's how we can tackle this. I think for us, networking and provision of opportunities are key. Mentorship is key as well. There's a lot of young artists in Dzaleka that also need mentorship. from established voices, et cetera, both in and outside the camp. And I think that mentorship brings an aspect of hope. And I think in this instance, hope can be everything. And if we can be part of that journey of being there and bringing an aspect of hope, I think it's a great beginning. I think when we start, maybe a whole bunch of other things will unveil themselves. We might not necessarily know everything that we need to provide, but I think we just need to start with the basic need of being there. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of just being there and just spending time, sharing experiences, having a good laugh. It means a lot. And I think that's a great place to begin, because it's also funny when from outside you think you know what the solutions are, or you know what the needs are, but I think we need to engage. And then the more we engage, those answers will present themselves, because you don't want to go in with a prescription of what you think the needs are, especially from the outside. Then we'll be, doing the same thing that the development sector has been doing for so many years. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like what Q has said, the power of presence. We really underestimate the power of presence, because hope is everything. Hope is everything. I mean, and that's why therapy works, actually. Most of the times therapy works because of presence, because at that time someone is felt that they are meeting with someone else and that they are there for them. So I think if we can be better at that as people, as Malawian people, if we can do better at showing up. I think sometimes it's also the hardest thing to do because we are afraid to start it. But once you start it, I think it becomes easier. But I think I agree with that. It's a good place to start is to connect, is to be present.
Well, just to say publicly that whether yourselves or anyone that may be listening in ever want to find an entryway to Dzaleka refugee camp, ourselves at Inua are very much ready and open to finding a solution for you to get into the community in a way that's suitable for whatever objective you have, and that's respectful to the community there. It's not intrusive. It's not going in to, visit a zoo. So it's something that we are passionate about, making connections with people living in the camp and outside the camp. So I can see that Mr. Lucius Banda has joined us, but he doesn't seem to have a mic connection on his Zoom. So I'm not going to bring him in just yet, but Mr. Banda, if you're hearing us, I think you may need to switch on the audio. So I will look out for your audio to come on. The next person that I'm going to ask to come to the mic and participate in this discussion is Toussaint Farini, another friend from the refugee camp. Toussaint, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but thank you. The host has to give me an authorization with the video.
Yeah, I will do that now. I hope it's gonna go on in a second. Great. So now we see you as well. Yeah. Welcome to Sam. You know that
thank you very much.
You're the most important panelist on this discussion because you live in Dzaleka refugee camp and know exactly what it's like. So we really appreciate your perspective. But I wanted to tease you a little bit at the start of this interview. So you are co-founder and director at Salama Africa. What we know best of Salama Africa is obviously the dance crew, because they've won awards in Malawi, and they've performed in lots of places and really wowed lots of audiences. But Salama Africa is a youth organization, and you are holistic in your approach to serving the young people of Dzaleka. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. But so what makes me smile is that, you know, there is music and dance in Salama, but I don't see you dance and I don't hear you sing. So what are you doing heading up Salama Africa?
This question makes me laugh. It's a nice question I really like. Thank you very much, Florisa, for giving me this space. I think I will respond with a question, and then after that I will also answer. Let me tell you one thing. Like I hope if you're a Catholic, like for example, for people who are Catholic, most of the time, if they want to do their weddings, they go to the priest to get some, you know, so that they can just be counseling and what. Do the priests got married before? I think no. They don't have any experience in terms of marriage, but they can also give some advices. Of course, I'm not like a good dancer, as you can see my boys, but at least I can do some moves. I can do some moves. And I used to be a dancer before, but not a singer because my voice is very terrible. That's one I have to accept, like my voice is really terrible. Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah.
Toussaint, I want to put you on hold for a moment because Mr. Banda is online, but I will come back to you. Mr. Banda, do you have an audio connection? Can you greet us? No, we cannot hear. So let's go back to Toussaint for now. Great. So Toussaint, I'm gonna, for the benefit of those who are listening in, who are not living in Dzaleka, I'm just gonna give a very brief intro of the legislation that regulates the lives of people in Dzaleka. So 32 years ago, a national policy was put in place to restrict refugees to living in the refugee camp until they return home or move to another country. And this applies to children born in Malawi as well by refugee parents. It's evident that the Malawian community of artists has embraced the talent that comes out of Dzaleka. And I say this because the Tumaini Festival could not have helped without the support of Malawian artists, because Salama Africa, was it first or second at Jive competition?
Second.
Second, which is a Malawian national competition.
Yes,
again,
of course, yeah.
Menez, you know, has been supported and promoted by Malawians and many other. Mr. Banda, who's online, I know he has had you guys, right? Salama Africa at some of its shows,
yeah.
as well as a group of security, sort of event security that comes from Dzaleka refugee camp. And the Burundian drummers, Amahoro, have played actually for President Bingu wa Mutharika. They've played at corporate events. They've played in so many venues across Malawi, Lake of Stars. So that's because Malawi has embraced refugee talent. Now, you know, I think it's safe to say that the Malawi art scene has benefited in richness and diversity because of the people that come from other countries that live in Dzaleka. Now, however, there is more that needs to be done. So I'm going to ask you two things. Okay, at the moment, from the perspective of the Salama Africa dance crew, what are the kind of obstacles that you guys meet when there's an opportunity to perform somewhere?
Thank you very much for the question. This is an amazing question. Okay, first of all, let me say this: opportunities most of the time are there. But most of the time when you get opportunities and some other times you feel like
there are some other papers that you guys don't have. Like, for example, I was supposed to bring my dancers this coming Sunday in Rwanda, but because we don't have travel documents, so it's really difficult for us to bring them in Rwanda. And you know, like everything, there was a guarantee because everything would be paid by the partners. And you know, like we have already, this is just like we have missed already big opportunity. But in the country, of course, sometimes when you want to go somewhere, if you meet with the police, they will tell you that you are supposed to go back to Dzaleka because maybe you don't have documents, you don't have your, you don't have an ID. Because for us to get even an ID, sometimes it's a little bit challenging. And every day asking an authorization from the camp, it's also a little bit challenging because people like us, maybe they will tell you even a day before, and it's Saturday. So try to imagine how are you going to get the document for you to go to town. So in that case, it is like a little bit difficult. But I really appreciate because some of the people in this industry have understood that our similarities matters than our differences. And I would like just to say thank you very much to people like Q Malewezi, because Q Malewezi is one of the people who have given like a big opportunity of showcase to Salama Africa. I remember the time that Mr. Q Malewezi brought here Ann Kansime, the Ugandan comedian. Like it was a big event, and that was our first big event. And you can imagine already that there is that's, you know, like that's communication between people like you, people who have understood us. These guys, they have talent, and we have to give them an opportunity. There is also Mr. Lucius Banda, my respect to him, because if now they can be talking about refugees in different festivals, in one of the biggest festival in Malawi, such as Sand Festival, because of Mr. Lucius Banda. You know, like Mr. Lucius Banda has decided to say that, okay, what I want to see is talent, and also promoting refugees. And that's the biggest promotion that we really like, and it's always in our heart. And if they continue like that, now we have a name on national level, not us only as Salam Africa, but even other groups in Dzaleka refugee camp. Like for example, this time the last time when we had this Sun Festival, we had almost like 3 dance crews from Dzaleka refugee camp. So you can imagine that before we were only us, now it's almost like 3 other dance crews. Means that Mr. Lucius still pushing refugees, you know, and the only thing that we have so that we can express ourselves in Malawi is putting art on the front line so that we can change our narrative. Because most of the people, they know that, okay, refugees, you know, they are this, they are that. But people like Q Malewezi, Lucius Banda, they have helped us to change our narratives, because now people can just say, okay, refugees are talented people. Like refugees, they got this potential. Refugees can also contribute to the change of the country. And yes, we do, you know, by using our talent. Like for example, if we can go outside of the country, we would be out of the country representing Malawi, not representing like refugees, but representing Malawi, because they will be saying that these people are coming from Malawi. And, you know, we will also be proud by representing the country. And some other times, like, for example, if we receive like other artists who are coming all the way from outside, like, for example, America or maybe Europe, or maybe video producers, when they come to do, like, for example, a film documentary, those people, they have to pay hotel, they have to pay visa, they have to pay, like, they have to buy the food in the country. This means that the fact that they came to see us and they pay all those things, it means that we are also contributing indirectly. I don't know if you get my point.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I can say. And Like, I'm really happy if other people can also be thinking about that. I think it can also be great. And we will also tell these big mans to continue working very hard so that their music, like for example, Mr. Sir Lucius Banda, so that if he pushes his music, means that Salama is also pushed, refugees are also pushed. You know, like when he invited us that we have to perform in his video, that's a big boost, like for us, like it's something big, you know. And I think that's what I have as of now. Yeah.
Great. So it sounds like for the immediate upliftment and immediate promotion of refugee talent, the most effective thing that Malawian artists can do is to include them in their shows and to open doors for them. And then it also sounds like if that's the only thing that there is, it remains a situation where almost the refugee artists are being just basically someone is just doing you a favor, you know, which isn't quite the ideal. What would be ideal is that if there was integration in the country and you had the freedom of movement within the country, you could then become your own promoter and your own event organizers, even if the good souls or the big men's, as you call them, aren't able to support you. And I want to say this is very much what Inua Consulting is all about, is to support the movement towards integrating refugees that have been in Malawi for a long time into the fiber of this nation. So I would like to ask Innocent, I believe now you're back online with us, if you would please come in.
Yes, thank you so much, Clarissa. Thank you, everyone, for their contribution. I mean, I wanted to ask a question to Marlon. You know, when I was growing up, like in the refugee camp, my escape, as you say that, you know, use music as escape. My escape was, you know, my guitar. I had a guitar made of, you know, oil tin, and I would just go in the corner or sometimes in the bush, play the guitar, sing some of the songs that I wrote. I would cry, and the more tears that, you know, I shed, the more my heart cleared. And to me, that was, you know, part of the therapy. However, we see so many artists, so many musicians struggle with drugs. How come that, you know, they are full on in the industry that, you know, is used for therapy, and yet it's so easy for them to, you know, to use drugs and be lost? Is it fame? Is it like, what is missing? I just want to get your perspective on that.
Wow, thank you for bringing that question to light. I think I want, let me answer it in this way. When we have an outlet, such as music, as an escape, like you said, as a way of coping with pain, it's one way of dealing with pain, but that's not the only reason why it works. Most of the times why it works is also because we ascribe a certain meaning to it. And I think that's the missing link, because sometimes we can use art as an expression of pain, but if there's no meaning, if there's no attachment to something that can help you deal with what you're struggling with in a healthier way, then you find other ways to deal with what you're struggling with. And unfortunately, drugs is one of those ways that some people find themselves into to escape, because for drugs, it's a way of really just avoidance. It's a way of avoidance, and it gives you temporary reprieve. And the temporary reprieve is nice, but then unfortunately, physiologically, your body sometimes, most times, depending on the drugs, will adopt an addictive part to it. So then you can't stop anymore. And it doesn't become about the drug anymore. It's about something else. So I think what I've noted most with those that have used art and sports or entertainment as a way of escape, and have landed on a healthier plane, it's mostly because they have also attached it to certain meanings that have helped them. So you will find that sometimes people will have musical art combined with spiritual meaning, and that helps them then to see their whole life in a different way. They create different what I call narratives, because as human beings, narratives are the things that help us understand ourselves. And when you create a different narrative for yourself, it helps you sometimes to hope. Like you said, hope is everything. But if you don't have, if you just have the expression and there's all these emotions, there's all these trauma, and you don't have meaning, well, you want to escape. So I think that's really the difference.
Wow, thank you. To Q, I mean, I've known you for many years. I believe since 2006, if not 5. We have interacted at Capital City Baptist Church, and looking at what you are doing in Malawi. I mean, you are a big name, but and a great potential as well. Like, you have education, like you studied what you do. You are talented, but also you have knowledge, education on top of the talent. But when I look at people that you have been able to work with, mostly are, people with humble background. Is it your gift? If I were you and I want to make money with my talent, I'll go for big names and push them forward. But you always get people who are, like Farini said, he's really grateful for what you have done to showcase the talent of refugees, and many other people. There are so many, like I think Nyango, the lady with amazing voice from the north. Have listened to Zanga Zozama, which is one of the best albums that Peter Mawanga has produced, and it has your name on it. Are you tell us, is it what makes you always go to people who kind of, if they're not promoted, they don't, instead of going to the big names and make big money?
Tough question. I think I'm drawn to stories, of overcoming, and I've never been asked that question. It's actually now that I'm thinking about it, but it's not something that I've consciously paid attention to. So it's a tough question for me. But when I think about it, I think it's, to start with, the artists that I've worked with, to start with, before background or anything, they are amazing artists. And I think for me, that's a great place to begin with. Because your background is only part of your story, but the gift is what will open doors for you, is what will get you noticed. And for me, I think that's been the thing. So if it's an issue of maybe background, maybe it's been how that background has affected or inspired the passion in expression of these different artists. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why we connect to artists who come from a tough background, because they connect with that pain, and they've got a special way, they've got something in their expression that makes us feel. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just speculating here because I never really thought about that. I think for me, they've been amazing artists.
Wonderful. So you're looking at the talent, and this, as you said, the story of someone is part of, their talents and part of their strength. So yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I've been thinking about this quite for a long time. Toussaint, you rightly, are thankful for what people like you and other artists in Malawi have really embraced the talent of refugees. Is it enough? What else can the artists do to really cement the solidarity, the Ubuntu kind of concept that they have been able to show that, you can be a refugee, you can be Malawian, but we are all connected to one source, and this is the talent that we have and we need to celebrate it. What else can people, the artists in Malawi can do?
I think maybe the other thing that our fellow brothers and sisters can just help us to do is more especially like reinforcing the relation between the host community and refugees, because there are so many things to do, like for example, such as working in not only in music or maybe in dance, but also working in other in other fields. For example, we have refugees who went at school this side. Maybe they're not really good with singing, they're not really good with dancing, but they can also advise in terms, like for example, of producing music, or maybe they are good actors. They can also advise with something. What I can just tell maybe Mr. Q, Sarah Lucius Banda and Marilyn is to say that they should just tell the Malawian community to come and visit Dzaleka and discover different talents that we have here in Dzaleka refugee camp. I'm really sure if people can just take their time to come and discover different other things that are happening in Dzaleka, maybe they will just understand us. What we have to do is just to live together and continue pushing this country and put it on the map of the world and in particular of Africa. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, we are running out of time, but I just want to say that, when I think of the collaboration in the art, I mean, we didn't talk about the film industry, but we have seen Dzaleka film industry really thriving and, getting involved in different activities. We have seen Judo for Peace as well being involved, and, they have gone to Zambia with, Judo for Peace, representing the nation. So it's really, really great to say. But I think for me, when I think of the power of music, you can listen to a song, one song, 100 times, but I don't think you can listen to a powerful speech more than 10 times. So I really dream that one day, musicians will come together and write an Ubuntu song that highlights the rights of refugees and ask people to connect, and even the lawmakers to change and really look at the issue of refugees with keen eye and see how they can support. Because sometimes changing the laws to allow refugees to thrive, can be used as if, people are selling the country to the foreigners. But that's my dream. That's what I really want to see. Now, with a few seconds, Farini, Marlin, and Q, what one word do you want to say before we allow any questions from our listeners? Anybody can go.
I don't know if I can start.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think my last word would be only putting love between us, like loving each other. Because if we love each other as African, as citizen of the world, I'm really sure that nothing is impossible. Together as one, we can still build this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Q?
Mine will be slightly longer, and I'll give a quick background. So I'm changing everything to Kweza. I think you'll be seeing more Kweza than Concept Creative. And I think Kweza for me is more than just a company, it's a philosophy. And there are 3 words that came to me when I was thinking of Kweza, which is to uplift or to elevate. And we believe that you cannot elevate yourself without elevating others. And in doing that, the 3 pillars of Kweza that I want to share with everyone. And that's Umodzi, which is united or unity, Limodzi, together, and Pamodzi at the same time. So united, we need to push, and we need to push with everyone putting in effort at the same time, because that's how we're going to have the most impact. Thank you.
That's incredible. By the way, Kweza is Chichewa and Kiswahili is Inua. So, you know, our companies are best friends. So thank you so much. Malin, what's your last word for now?
I think just first I'm thankful for you having me here and including my voice. I think I agree with my brothers that the most important thing is that we are all people. And as people, that's all we need to do together, and to understand one another and to kweza each other, right? To help each other, uplift each other. So I would just say, I think we need to not be so afraid. I think fear is a huge barrier sometimes because we don't know what it will end up looking like, or we don't know. There are some things we can't control, but fear should not stop us from connecting with one another. Fear must not stop us from building better for all of us. So I'm just very encouraged and very thankful.
Thank you so much for that word. I mean, fear has limited the potential of so many. One of my philosophy teachers used to say that the graveyard is the richest place in the world because it has so many dreams that were never achieved. And, you know, one reason is because people are afraid of stepping from outside of their comfort zone. So thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Clarissa, do you have any final word as the host?
Yeah, actually, I feel like a preacher right now, summarizing, you know, the goodness of the sermon, because reminded me of, you know, the conversation has reminded me of a beautiful quote by a female social entrepreneur who died prematurely, but she said, "Talent is equally distributed, but opportunities are not." And this is a call to those of us that hold keys to doors in Malawi. And, you know, let's usher in those who are prevented from creating their own opportunities. So that's one thing I wanted to say. And then I also liked, I liked a lot the reference that Marlin made to both fear of what's going to happen if I initiate something or if I even visit a situation of need, as well as, you know, Q's acknowledgement. Sometimes you don't go to a place because you feel like, I don't know what I can do to help, or I don't know what the solution is, or the problem is just too big. But what I want to say, I don't know if I can say on behalf of, in this case, of the Dzaleka community, who are often just seen as numbers, you know, 51,000 refugees, ma Burundi, everyone's called ma Burundi, even the Congolese, the Somali, the Rwandese, you know, you disappear behind a sort of collective group noun, and you sort of wonder, what about my unique individual personality? Does anybody know me, or am I just Burundi, you know? So when outsiders visit the camp and engage and look into the eyes of people that live in Dzaleka and get to know their names and their stories and what makes them individual, it's an opportunity for someone's identity to be acknowledged, because this encampment situation is brutal. It strips you of your identity because you're not allowed to express it through a profession, for example. And even your survival in terms of food is linked to the number on your ration card. So we need to do all that we can, even as simple as getting to know somebody as an individual beyond their refugee or asylum seeker status. So that's what I would say. Do you have comments?
No, actually, just wanted to say thank you to our panelists. It's really a pity that Sir Lucius Banda was not able to, he joined, but we couldn't hear him because he was traveling for duty and the audio did not work. But we hope one day soon he will join us. Thank you so much for all the conversation, the wisdom, but also the spirit of Kweza, of Limozi, of Pamozi. This is what we stand for, and let's push one another. Thank you so much. The next Zoom, we'll take a break in December, so we'll resume the two left Zoom that are left in January and February. So for January, it will be on the 27th. Thank you. And for those, I see Nadia, she's in America, she's celebrating Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends. Bless you. Bye-bye.